more, Egghead, now! Go ahead!
Chances are, if you've been to a Disney park anywhere on the planet in the last 50 years, you probably know exactly what the Haunted Mansion is. It's a little different in every park, and everybody's got a different part that's their favorite or a different character that's their favorite, but pretty much everybody knows what the Haunted Mansion is. They've made numerous movies, specials, etc. There's all kinds of shirts, t-shirts, characters. I mean, it's famous. One of the most famous characters was never really in the ride, and that's the Hatbox Ghost created by Yale Gracie. The illusion was great, but it didn't really work, so they pulled it from the ride, and it was only brought back recently in the last year to both California and Florida. But the Hatbox Ghost has been an icon for the Haunted Mansion despite not really being in the ride, which I always thought was really cool. He was one of my favorite characters. So recently, for Halloween, I was talking with my family and we thought it would be cool to just make something for the house. Nothing fancy, just a decoration for our house. And I came across this artist, Sergio Mengal. I'll put a link to his stuff below. Lots of Haunted Mansion stuff. All the characters you can think of, the hitchhiking ghosts, some of the other iconography from the ride, worth every penny. And this file, as you can see, is really detailed and you can put it together lots of different ways. There's a lot of options for assembly. You can customize it, it's really cool. So in addition to printing out pieces for Hatbox over the next few days, I also printed out this emblem that's the big bronze plaque on the brick walls outside the attraction. Over the next week or so, I got Hatbox painted. Nothing fantastic, nothing amazing. Again, it's a decoration for my house. It's not a Golden Demon entry. I'm pretty sure one of my kids will probably drop this at some point. And you can see my video, Did It Work, for the Monument Hobbies methodologies on this brass effect and the verdigris. I'll put a link to that below as well, but those came out great. So now that everything was done, it was time to measure. I needed the height, the width, the depth for Hatbox so I could get a suitable home. And not just him, also that plaque. I needed to know how big it was so I could mount it up behind him. And I ordered a couple different glass display bells off Amazon, but nothing really fit. So, since the glass display bells didn't fit, I had to come up with another option. All these pieces came out great. I'm really happy with this plaque. We're gonna set this off to the side. And again, Hatbox, I didn't do anything major. He's real breakable, real fiddly in some places. But I tried to get a just really nice basic paint job. The ribbon around the hat came out really nice. I tried to put attention in certain places and make the clothing very drab and dull. Put some time into the wood, came out really nice. The brass handle on his cane was nice. But by accident, I was in Hobby Lobby and I found one of these. And this is a display box for a model car or like a metal car, a really nice model replica type display box. And I'm like, this is perfect. If I stand it up on end, I can mount him on the floor. I can make some sort of decorative floor underneath him. And then I can find a way to mount that seal, that plaque, on this flat plane behind him. And I started thinking immediately, like maybe I could print out the brick pattern where that's actually outside the attraction, but I'll figure that out later. The first step was making some templates. I cut out a piece of paper for the floor, and then I started bending and cutting some paper to figure out basically my templates for that back plate and the floor. And yeah, this is gonna work out well. I can see where I wanna put this. I can align it. I can, take a pencil and mark where I want this. So this is gonna work. I can, kind of rough it out. Yeah, the spacing's great. It's gonna work really well. I have enough room for that to be up and behind him. He's got enough room, nothing's crowded. So really quickly I decided to go ahead and try to get it perfectly centered and then just trace out a rough outline of the emblem behind him, as well as kind of the boundaries of the box that he's standing on, just to take that into account. Because I decided by this point I wasn't just going to do bricks behind him, I was going to do something completely different, which would require taking this into Photoshop. So I also traced out the floor and then just kind of cleaned up my rough sketches to kind of figure out the boundaries of that emblem, where his box is on the floor, both from the front view and the top view. But then by putting a ruler in here, I know what my scale is. So this gnarly, nasty ruler that lives on my paint desk, like you couldn't tell. I just took a picture of this, And using that ruler for scale, in Photoshop, I know exactly how big I need to make this. So the first thing that I did was trace out the shape where the emblem's gonna go, traced out the boundaries in that lower box, and then dropped in the wallpaper from the Haunted Mansion. I thought that was a way better idea, especially adding a gradient, a dark glow, like make the box more prominent because it's darker behind there, and then a glow for that emblem. I printed out the first one, that emblem. It was just too saturated, it looked too much, it looked really heavy. So I went back and I printed out another one that was lighter and a little bit more see-through, and it was a little more subtle. I think it worked a lot better. So take that first copy, chunk it in the trash. Now I went ahead and I cut it out, and you're probably wondering why there's a hole in it. And that's because when I glue this emblem on, I don't want it to just stick to the paper, and if the paper were to peel off the plastic, it's gonna be a bad time. So if I have a hole in the paper and I glue that down, it's actually gonna glue to the plastic. And I think it's gonna hold a lot better for a lot longer. So that's one of the next steps, is making sure we get this emblem glued on, and then the whole back plate is done, essentially. I'll do the same thing with the floor. I will probably cut out a piece that I can use as a template so I can airbrush some sort of glow on the floor. Now, I'm gonna break all kinds of rules of physics. I'm gonna put glows in places they don't belong. I know, I don't care. It was just something stupid and fun for me and my family, and I kind of didn't put a ton of thought into it. But yeah, same thing with the floor. I need to put a hole in the plane of the floor so that the model can actually be glued to the plastic box and not just to a piece of paper. So I'll airbrush in a glow on this floor and might be able to pull off like a nice hard edge shadow. The next thing I wanted to do to make sure that this didn't peel off was sand the back. I took some sandpaper, just roughed it up, grabbed some good old Elmer's glue. I cleaned it off with rubbing alcohol to have a good, nice, clean working surface before trying to glue this down, and made sure there was no dust or anything. And then, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. I dumped a bunch of glue all over it, spread it with a crappy brush, and then I put the print with the wallpaper down. The other thing that I did was make sure to use this glue really thin and spread it out nice and thin. If your paper gets waterlogged and kind of saturated from the moisture, it's more prone to buckling. If you can get this stuff nice and thin and especially really even and make sure it's not globbed up in any one area, you're usually going to get a better result. So after you get it all spread, do one last pass over it to kind of smooth it out. You can place your print out, and then I'll usually put something on it to weight it down to make sure it's pressed flat. You can put wax paper or whatever you want to put underneath it to make sure it doesn't stick to anything. So yeah, getting the wallpaper piece with that little glow glued on there, and then hopping over to the floor. I taped the stencil on just to use it kind of like a mask on that black piece that I'm going to use as the floor. Maybe if I were to do this project again, I might do a little bit more detailed floor, like actually more of a wooden floor, something 3D printed. But for now, again, this was just a silly project that me and my kids did, and it worked out really well in the end. But I did find a few things I'd do differently. So grabbing the airbrush, I very carefully started to spray in a very, very diluted light green color just for a kind of glow. A little bit. I didn't want to go too heavy-handed. I don't want to oversaturate it and have a big green spot on the floor, but a little bit of an ethereal and kind of creepy glow worked out well. So I went at it lighter, did a few more passes. I'd rather build it up slowly than just slap it on there and regret it and have to do it, 3-4 times, because heavy-handed isn't always the answer, believe it or not. Getting the glow on here slowly, I built it up. I probably took a little more time than I needed to, but I was a little scared. I didn't want to screw it up this close to the end. Hatbox came out great, the plaque came out great, the wall came out great. I'm starting to get down to the wire, and I'm like, don't screw up. Just simple and easy, don't screw up, man. So yeah, we got a glow on the floor, and we kind of have that shadow of the box he's standing on. So right now, I'm pretty stoked. The back is solid. That thing's not coming apart. There's no buckling, no wrinkling. It came out really, really good. Really happy with that. And he fits nicely. Nothing's too crowded. I like just a little bit of purple in his hat, ties into the purple in the background. Overall, I like the palette. It works well together. I don't think anything clashes. So yeah, last but not least, I felt like putting some extra glow in there. So I decided, I was like, I'm gonna screw this up. But anyways, I decided to do some edge lining just a little bit towards the areas where that box would be. Now again, I know the way the front of that is really cut out, the glow wouldn't actually hit him or the floor, it would just be projecting out in front of him. But just for fun, just to kind of be silly and break the laws of physics, I put glows a little sharp with this brush along some edges, and then again came back in with that really diluted mix. I mean, it's more thinner than it is paint at this point, and started putting glows all over him. And this point, my kids were actually in the room watching me, and they were digging this part. They were just, whoa! Now, we know as miniature painters, it's maybe a little on the simplistic side, but for them, as a family project, they were digging on this, and at this point, they were my helpers, and they had a lot of fun. So, glow accomplished. That was the last step I needed. So here's the final result. Now you're gonna ask why I don't have video. I tried putting this in my light box and it's so shiny, you'll thank me later. With all the lights and all the glare on this box, it was insane. But stills are good enough. He came out awesome. This thing looks great. I've got some stills because video, again, not an option. But just taking some stills, he came out awesome. I absolutely love the look. I like the glow, even though it breaks physics. I like the emblem on the wall behind him with the little subtle glow behind it. The wallpaper idea worked out well. Yeah, dude, I'm really stoked. I think he came out great. Even the little details like the verdigris on that plaque in the background or the metal cap, the metal handle on his cane. Some of the little touches are probably some of my favorite things. And again, it was nothing special. It was just an idea to make a decoration to go somewhere in the house for no reason. So yeah, you can see here from both sides, he looks absolutely amazing. There's enough room for him to breathe on all sides. I don't think he's crowded. I think if I were to do this again, I might even go bigger, a bigger box, bigger print, maybe try to do some cobwebs. But as a whole, he looks outstanding. I've also already had a handful of people jump in and ask me, hey, will you sell me one of those? And I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like getting sued by Disney anytime soon, but no, they are not for sale. I'm sure you can buy a 3D model, print one out yourself, and paint it however you like. But no, we finished this one up. The family was really happy. The boys got to help a little bit, and we put it together. We put it out on the side table for a couple of days. It looked okay there. But in the end, it ended up moving on to the mantle with a bunch of other Halloween decorations. But in the end, this was a fun project, something simple. I didn't put a lot of pressure on myself to try and make it look Golden Demon worthy. It's just something fun to do with the kids and the family for Halloween. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. It really does help me a lot. If you've got something to add to the conversation, drop a comment below. And if you haven't, subscribe to Egghead Hobbies so you don't miss out on all my videos. We'll see you soon. Take care.